hopefully I've done this right as well.
It started.
Either way, it says we're live. Right. Hello and welcome to MadMarcus Monday Night Debate, a new show, hopefully, that will be broadcasted every Monday. So how this is going to work is we've got two contestants that are going to argue their fors and against for three topics, and it's going to be down to the comments to determine who wins each topic. Okay, so at the top of your screens there, we have George Kyle, who likes cinema and reading, R&B music. Is that right, Kylie? Yeah?
All correct,
R&B, yeah. Big fan of CR7. Yep.
Yeah, massive fan of Ronaldo,
fan of CR7. So there'll be no questions about CR7 at all. Right? And at the lower end of your screen, you have Jessica, who is in Canada. Is that right?
I am indeed. Very close to Niagara Falls.
Oh, very nice. Very nice. And Jess likes gardening, cooking, and traveling. What sort of places have you traveled to, Jess?
I've been all over the world.
All over the world. Okay. Did you
Yeah.
used to live over here?
Yeah, I lived in the UK I lived in the UK for about 16 years. I moved there when I was 11, and I came to Canada when I was 26.
Okay, that's pretty cool. You used to be
No, I used to travel all over the place. I wasn't a season holder, but I used to travel all over to watch United when I was a teenager.
Okay, right. Enough of the social pleasantries. Let's get down to brass tacks. All right, now.
Scary.
Yeah, this is serious shit tonight. All right, this is serious shit. Now,
I didn't know this was going to be so serious.
Now, what's going to happen? Like I said, Echo gone. I think that was me, Mark, because I had my phone on. Sorry, my bad. So, first topic is going to be about Ollie. Okay, and the job that he's done in his time at Manchester United as a manager. Now, Kylie, I noticed some comments yesterday from you saying you shouldn't be applauding him too quick. So I think maybe you're not as pro Ollie as what Jessica is. So
probably not, but I do think he's done some good things.
Right. Okay. So you're going to get 3 minutes, right? Maybe 2.5, to argue your point why people shouldn't be as pro Ollie as they are. So let's start the clock.
How long am I getting? 2 minutes.
About 2.5, 3 minutes. Yeah. Yeah. Right. So go for it.
So as it stands, I don't necessarily think that Ollie's done as good a job as people think. People are getting very much hyped up, same as they did last year. Obviously, when he got after the PSG game, he got the permanent managerial role, and then proceeded to and had prior to Bruno Fernandes arriving, had almost dragged us to the lowest points total that we'd ever had. He does struggle, I think, with tactically in terms of breaking teams down. He's not necessarily a manager who's really proven to have good tactics either. So I often feel like it's the players who are carrying them through, whether that's Bruno Fernandes or Pogba or Matic. And it's almost as though he sort of stumbles upon a team that works. And I don't necessarily feel like he's got the right tactics to succeed. I think he often gets a good ride because he's a legend of the club. And that's something that stands him in good stead. And I don't think he's necessarily proven at the highest level. He won championships with Molde in Norway, but he's not a manager who has the requisite track record at the highest level with other clubs. So very much a case of where I don't necessarily think he can take us to the next level, because often as a top manager, or manager who goes to a top club, you have to have that pedigree of winning top trophies at top clubs. And as I said, I don't think Ollie has that the necessary background in order to succeed. And as I said, it's very much a case of where if we look at the bare sort of brass tacks of the facts, Ollie has very much struggled He's had 2 periods of good consistency, which is obviously ever since Bruno came in, and obviously when he was an interim manager, when there was that feel-good factor, and when the players were almost sort of playing free of any sort of control or the reins of Jose Mourinho. But obviously there's a massive period as well, a long period, the vast majority of his time here, where we struggled. We lost to many teams who we should be beating, drew, and we really struggled to break teams down. And we tended to be a very counter-attacking, park the bus team, which was something which Jose Mourinho and other managers or his predecessors had been vilified for. But again, Ollie gets a very much an easy ride from fans, just simply and purely because he scored obviously the goal in '99.
Fair enough. You finished, yeah? You still got about 30 seconds. Or are you done?
I'm done, yeah.
Done? Right. Jessica, you heard that. Why you get your thinking cap on? There was a good comment here from Casper that says, in reply to George Kyle, that's why you have coaches. You can't do it all. Right. Fair comment. Fair comment. So, do you want to reply to that, George, before we go, Jess?
I do want to reply to that, yeah.
Yeah, go on then.
Ollie, of course, Ollie can't do it all, like any manager. But ultimately, the buck stops with him. He is the manager of the club. He's the one that controls everything. And obviously, other than, like I said, in the 2 periods that I've discussed previously during my argument, there have been many times where we've been lost adrift. Many people have been sort of Ollie out. And really, my sort of argument stems that we need to have achieved something. So whether that is maybe top 4 when we are obviously at the end of the season, or whether that's a trophy of some kind, we need to achieve something before we really sort of commend Ollie. That's my sort of argument, is that we're jumping the gun and we're rushing to try and celebrate his play and his style as a manager. Even there's been talk of him leading us to a title, which is extremely premature. And as I said, that's my argument, is that we're giving too much praise to Ollie when he hasn't achieved the standards
Do you
yet.
want silverware before any major praise goes?
We need silverware, or at least we need some sort of achievement, because like I said, it's already been proved when we gave him the permanent position after PSG, and then obviously we didn't get top 4, did we? And we sort of spiraled out of control and lost many matches that we should have won. And it's a case of not learning from our mistakes if we sort of deify him too early.
Okay, fair enough. So, Jessica, you took that all in.
Yep.
Your 3 minutes starts now.
So I've always thought that bringing Ole was a good thing. I've always supported him. I think that I'm a little older, so I was there when Fergie came in and did absolutely nothing for a long, long time. I remember the get him out part as well. I think the biggest thing with Ole has been, there's 2 things. He's cleaned out some of the club BS that was going on. Jesse Lingard, I happen to like Jesse Lingard, but Jesse Lingard, Phil Jett, all these people, they're not really around too much. Ashley Young is gone. Chris Smalling is away. Sanchez is away. Do you know what? There's been quite a bit of clear out or not playing players as new players have come in that, maybe we all felt should not have been out of the team. Lukaku, all these people. I think that the fact that they had very poor performances last year was because that needed to happen. You needed to go down to be able to rebuild. When Fergie came in, Ron Atkinson went, right? And the only thing in my whole those years traveling the length and breadth of the England, the only thing we ever won was the FA Cup. And I think that there does need to be time. And what I really have enjoyed seeing in the last couple of games is I'm starting to see. You could see what they were trying to do, but it wasn't really being effective. And I think now you're starting to see the plays. You're starting to see some style. You're starting to see the going forward and scoring goals. I mean, they've had the best unbeaten run, right, since they last won the title. So I think all these things together, it requires time. I think if you look at Fergie again, if you compare, he did not coach the team per se. there was a structure there, and I think that's the other thing. And the people that Ole has brought in, he brought in Fernandez, Dan James. Maybe he'll develop, maybe not. We don't know. But Dan James, there is a role, and we need squad players and of anybody that knows that, it's Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, because that was his role. He was a squad player that came on and scored, right? And I think he's done really well at bringing in people. Van Sat, I can never say his name. He has that kid running down, has like nothing gets by him, and I think again, why didn't these other managers do that? I don't know what's changed, and I do think that a lot of this has to do with the fact that he is a club legend for that 99 goal, and perhaps he's gained respect within the club structure. People know him, and because of that, he's been able to hold tight and sort of change things. And I would say that I see players playing for him. I haven't seen those players. Martial tracking back, excuse me, even the commentator said it in the last game. These players seem to want to play for him. There seems to be some sort of morale there that we haven't seen in forever at Manchester United. And we even have a certain person, which we may be talking about shortly, who's kind of biting his tongue and not causing too many problems right now. So all those things together, that's it.
That's it. 3 minutes. That's it. So, right. Okay. Interesting points from you both, actually. Very interesting. I will try and be as partial as I can, right? Because I don't want to take one side. Yeah, impartial. That's the one. So Mark Atherton said, and I think this is backing up what you're saying, Jess. Even without our best players, Ollie had a great record against all of the top teams. No Pogba and no Fernandez, and he still got win after win. So that's Kylie. Do you want to react to that, because that's backing up Jessica's point?
But it's praising Ollie for. I already talked about the fact that his main sort of tactic was park the bus, counter-attacking football, and there's no doubting that was an extremely successful tactic. But there's also no doubting that factually and statistically, over the year, obviously until we've obviously come back from this lockdown, his actual his games record was terrible. And again, all we're going to see, I feel, is that if there are any injuries, so for example, if Bruno gets injured or Pogba gets injured or someone like that, you're going to see the same terrible football, because and to clarify, it's also been supported. That's also been substantiated by the fact that when Fred and McTominay were playing, obviously against Norwich, and in that match, we were terrible. And again, it's because you can't play. Obviously, we may go into other players and stuff like that, but you can't play the possession-based football with the wider squad. And if Ollie was a very good manager, we would see the same sort of style trying to be implemented all the time. But you just can't do it.
Well, I'm going to throw a bit of a curveball in there, George, because no matter what the stats say, right, for me, it all comes down to results. It's a results business. I think everyone in football knows that, right? It's a results business. So does it really matter how bad you play and still win 3-1, 4-1, 5-2? Is performance that much of a thing that people will always find a negative despite a winning result?
I often feel like a lot of the time people only sort of highlight or spot things, either good things when teams are winning, or bad things when teams are losing. And there's often a for example, with Paul Pogba, a lot of the stuff that people are now praising him for, he was still doing when we were losing. And it's because people see, obviously, and it's the same with the commentators as well. There's a case of where they see the winning performances, and you notice it more and more when you look out for it. So it's well worth sort of looking out for it when you watch other matches with the commentators. Is that they're very, almost like the weather, they're very changeable in terms of how they see things. So it's like, for example, when sort of Southampton scored or whatever, it was all Manchester United on the back foot. Manchester United, they've been terrible, whatever. Then Manchester United score, oh, they've been excellent again, and obviously Southampton score again. Oh no, it's been absolutely terrible. So the commentators are very much changeable in terms of what happens in the game, and it's almost like one instance of like a goal or anything like that is entirely indicative and symbolic of what's happened for that 15-20 minutes, when often it's not. In terms of as well, and I think the points regarding about Sir Alex Ferguson and you using him as an example, it's often a case of where I'm trying to think of a good sort of analogy here, but where you're sort of using where you're sort of using one person who's arguably the greatest sports manager of all time as an example of why we should give Ollie time, when he's the exception, not the rule. He's not the person that's going to. I mean, obviously, Solskjaer. Ultimately, none of us are sort of like a prophet or a fortune teller. So Solskjaer could be very successful. But what I'm saying is the probability, if we look at it, in the cold light of day, is that Solskjaer's not going to be anywhere near that level, because Sir Alex was just one of a kind, and that's why I feel like when we talk about Solskjaer, it's sort of like silly really to mention Sir Alex, because obviously the time that he got given. Because not only was obviously he the best sort of manager that's ever been, but also it's a totally different era. It's like late 80s compared to now, where the game and the landscape of the game has totally changed.
Now I have to come back on that one, because people talk about the United style and all this, as far as I'm concerned, bullshit. And it always goes back to Fergie days. And in the Fergie days, the United style was grind out. I don't care what we do, get the goddamn win. That was it. That was the style. There was no marvelous. You take a look at that 99 the finals and the semi-finals. It's absolutely horrible. The Ferguson's thing was win the game. Period. Sometimes it was amazing style, and sometimes, but most times, they ground them out. They ground out those wins. And so when people talk about style and all this stuff, Ferguson was the absolute gem of winning games. He was.
Fair enough. Yeah.
And a lot of them were ground out.
Well, I mean, this is what the Monday night thing is for. I mean, Kylie, you said your bit about Ollie. Jessica, you said your bit. So we're going to do two comments here that I've picked out. One from Casper. It's his first full season. He's learning as a manager, which is why my feeling is in, as he isn't the best at tactics. It's a rebuild of the whole club. It takes time. I agree with Jessica. Sorry, Kylie, says Casper. Mark Atherton says that wasn't just Freddie McTominay's fault at Norwich. Mata and Lingard started too. And sorry, Mark says I'm an advert for healthy living. Mate, I love it. And Red Devil says, best compliment I can give Ollie is I've always wanted Poch, but I wouldn't change this Ollie this summer. He's doing a good job when you take everything into account. Right, so they've argued their points for and against. Put in the comments, whoever's watching, type in the name of who wins that debate for you. So you type in Jessica for Jessica, Kylie for Kylie. All right, so we'll give it 30 seconds, and the most votes for that person wins that round. I think the first
you didn't tell us this was happening.
See, so mate, I don't want to give everything away. I didn't want to give everything away. So basically, how it's going to roll is right. So Casper's gone for Jess, Beck's gone for George, Red Devil has gone for Jess. Just waiting for Mark's vote. Mark says Jess all the fucking way, emphatically. Kylie, mate, you ain't got many fans, have you?
I think, to be fair, I think a lot of people are already, because of this run of form, a lot of people are Ollie in anyway, aren't they? So
yeah. But
the proof will be in the pudding as to whether he sort of does it on a long-term basis.
So far, it's 3-1. Who else was what? Jem, who would you go for? Jess or Kylie?
Jess.
Right, Jem, my missus would go for Jess as well. So that's right. So that's 4 against 1. Right, so Jess is 1 up at the minute. Right, on to the next topic. This is going to be great. This one, absolutely fantastic, because it's the man himself. You either love him, hate him. There's no in between. Mr. Paul Pogba. Now, George, you went first on the last round, did you? Yeah, right. So Jess, not a Pogba fan as such, of his playing style, of what he brings to the team. So argue your points for against Pogba. Your 3 minutes start now.
You know, when I was thinking about this, the biggest argument against him is, can he carry the team to win a game? Apart from that Man City game, he's never done it. Never. Bruno Fernandes has come in and played with the same players, and he's done it consistent. And to me, that's the difference between somebody who's a really amazing player who can just come in and they do their thing and they don't mess around like Pogba does, and someone like Paul Pogba. And I think that for me, his biggest issue is just personality and his behavior on the pitch and his inability. When you look at him today, right now, nobody wants him. He shut the hell up. I was going to say a really bad word there. He shut up. He's dead to a ghost right now. No Riola, no Riola, blah, 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 all over the place, right? Yep. Nothing. It's been pin dead silence. Why? Because all these teams are buying all sorts of players, signing people. Anyone sign Paul Pogba? No. Why? If he's such a world-class player. I think that it will be very interesting I don't think he can carry a team. That's my biggest argument with him. And I think his and then he needs world-class players around him. If you're a really amazing player, you can carry a team. There's many players that have carried teams that are absolute garbage and crap, but they are the ones that can carry that team. Paul Pogba has never done that for Manchester United. And I think his entire attitude to the team is a virus. I think it's been absolutely atrocious how he's behaved. Alex Ferguson, I was reading up about what Alex Ferguson said about him. And I think the quote just kind of sums it up. He said that I think this is from his book, that Paul Pogba showed no respect because, again, him and his manager went around behind the scenes doing all their shady business and then went, see you later, alligators, when actually United thought he was going to sign. When he was a kid, this is. And like Fergie says, it's disrespectful. To be honest, if they carry on that way, I'm quite happy he's going away. And that's how I feel about Paul Pogba. I don't know if some of the change has been because Ole has that sort of power center and he's realized that he can't get the club against the manager like he did with Mourinho and all this crazy stuff that happened. Whether that's also a difference. I'm not saying he's a bad player by any stretch of the imagination. I just think that if you want to be a good player, play. Keep your mouth shut and play. If you don't want to play, then go away. Bye. See you later. I think Man United can bring someone else in that will be just as good, if not better. And that's how I look at it. Because I don't think no matter, David Beckham got sold. He was our best player, right? Why? Because he was getting too mouthy. And he was never really mouthy, but Fergie thought that he was getting too bigger than the club. No players bigger than the club. Play the game. That's it.
Right, now, before we go on to George, I must say, I don't think Pogba was brought in to carry the team. I think he was brought. I thought it was a bit of a publicity stunt in many ways because of
probably
the name and the price tag. There was a big to do about Adidas. About the trailer for him coming about. It was blown out of proportion, and I don't think that helped at all.
No, I agree with you on that. I do agree with you that the expectation was high, right?
Yeah,
the money,
so
everything.
It put so much pressure on him. And you know what? I think you could even say in a way he was probably doomed from the start. Because there was just such a circus around him. So I do think a lot was put on his shoulders. But I do think now Bruno's in there, he's took some of that burden off his shoulders. So I've got to stick up for him a bit there. Kylie, you are pro Pogba, part of Bance's Pogba FC wagon that's rolling the streets very highly and very fast. So your 3 minutes starts now.
Pogba's an absolutely exceptional player. Again, there's absolutely no denying it. He got into the team of the season last season, even in a team which was absolutely terrible. We saw in the first 3 months of Ollie, when he was an interim manager, that Pogba was the best player in the entire Premier League. The goals and assists that he was getting backed that up as well. This was a time when Bruno wasn't there, at all. We just had some good backup in Ander Herrera and Nemanja Matic, and he was allowed to express himself, which I think Bruno has helped again this season as well, obviously, in terms of that. But obviously, the main point is that on this season, the fact is, when we were playing very badly again, Paul Pogba wasn't there either. And again, Paul Pogba's come back since the lockdown, has been an excellent player again, same as he was last season. Again, there's often a sort of misconception again, or a sort of an exaggeration as to how many goals and assists that we wanted him to get when we signed him for such a big fee. There was never a case, because of his where he sort of plays in central midfield. There was a case of where people were expecting to get goals and assists, like for example Cristiano Ronaldo, just because of the fee that was mentioned. What we were supposed to be seeing with Paul Pogba was him running the games and sort of all the shows and bits and pieces like that. What I would say is that I don't think any player has ever been able to carry a team by themselves, unless you're talking about Cristiano Ronaldo. Obviously, again, we're not going to really just talk about him, but he's probably they still had quality around them, though, didn't they? Even if obviously Wayne Rooney was still quite good back then.
Ronaldo pretty well run. Well, go ahead. It's your time.
But there isn't really a case of where a player has really carried a team. Certainly not a team as bad as Manchester United have been over the past few years. I don't necessarily think, even if it was Ronaldo or Messi, I don't think we still wouldn't have won the major trophies that we needed to. Whether that was through management or, like I said, because the level of players were terrible, which they have been. We've obviously spoken about the levels of deadwood which we had to get rid of. Of different players and bad signings and purchases, and obviously throughout that all, Paul Pogba's not really had any sort of like support or anything along those lines. And as I said, he's always given his all, and we've seen as well, obviously, when he played for France in the World Cup, when he was surrounded by quality, which again we're obviously trying to. What was that? Sorry.
30 seconds.
What we've seen is that's facilitated his excellence, and of course he delivered a very stirring speech at half time in that final, was the man of the match as well. So he very much does step up in the big occasions, and like I said, Paul Pogba's always had a very good record. In fact, if you actually look at his sort of goals and assists for his position when he's played for us, and even in a team which has sort of sadly underachieved. And we've seen as well in terms of like Bruno Fernandes, and when he's come in compared to Pogba, again against Norwich, when Paul Pogba wasn't playing, and obviously Nemanja Matic, you could also argue as well, him not playing, when you had Fred and McTominay behind him, we did see that in the midfield he did struggle, and there was a case of where he was trying too much. So he was shooting from way out. He was trying to force the game too much because he didn't have the support around him. And that's obviously something that Paul Pogba had faced as well. So it's very tricky to talk about Bruno sort of succeeding right off the bat when he's had Paul Pogba and Matic behind him. And the only match when he didn't have that, he has struggled. So like I said, a lot of the time the quality around you does make a huge impact, because football is a team sport, not an individual one.
Okay, right. So that's the end of the second topic. Now, while you think about who won that debate, Jessica, I think you wanted to come back on something you said there. Did you want to?
I personally think Ronaldo carried a Portugal side to win something that was absolute crap, and he single-handedly did it. So I do think that players can carry teams to be quite successul. That was all I was going to say.
I mean, just to.
I'm kind of tired of hearing about Pogba needing this and Pogba needing that, and just gets on my nerves. So that's all I'm going to say on it. I think that football, it's football. Get on with it.
Well, I
look at it.
That's what Kylie thinks. It's his opinion. But Casper says here, question to you, George. How can you not back Ollie for inconsistent, but you back Pogba when he's the most inconsistent fucking, I'm guessing, player in the United squad. Double standards.
He's not inconsistent. I've already, like I said, I already proved. Like, as I said, when he got into the team of the season last season, there's already proved that he's been consistent. This sort of inconsistency is a myth. In regards to Cristiano Ronaldo carrying Portugal to that tournament, the best player in Portugal's team that tournament was Pepe. Portugal didn't score very many goals at all. They they ground out the wins by having a very solid defence, and Pepe was absolutely sensational at centre back in the final as well. Of course, as we remember, like I said, I'm the biggest Ronaldo fan you'll meet. But in the final as well, he got injured by Dimitri Payet and had to go off, and then it was the responsibility of the team to win the match, which they did. And again, I think it's slightly erroneous to say that he sort of carried them single-handedly when, like I said, there were other teammates who did have very good tournaments, in particular Pepe.
Right, okay. Red Devil, this is in reply to you, Jess. That was international football, totally different.
I would say also that I was involved in another discussion on Pop a while ago, and when they did the stats on that show, he was fairly he is not a consistent player in terms of every single game. Even at Juve, he was 1 in every 3 games. That was the stat.
Huh?
I think that's right.
Something
like that.
So,
anyway.
People, get your name in the comments. Who wins that debate? Red Devil has already gone in here. Sorry, Jess, but I'm backing Kylie on this subject. So we've got 1 for Kylie, for Pogba. Now, this could be a bit of a decider because Kylie needs to win this one. That's why I thought we'll have 3 subjects and we'll put Pogba in the middle. Mark gone with Jess, so that's 1-1. So just waiting for the next one. We're waiting for Casper. Jem, who would you go with there? Jess. You go with Jess about Pogba? No? Right, so Casper's gone with Jess, Mark's gone with Jess, Jem's gone with Jess, and Red Devil's gone with Kylie. If Beck's still here, I'm going to say Beck would go with Kylie as well, so that would be 3-2. So let me just go through the comments to see if anyone else is here. So I think, unless we get 1 more vote for Kylie, that would be 2-0 to Jess. Unless you want to demand a recount, Kylie.
No, I'm fine.
Right. Who would I go for? Oh, well, you know, I'm like the ref. I'm trying to be impartial, but we've got another topic here to come up with, and it's all about Fred. This one, Kylie, you're a fan. Well, you are a fan, and you're not a fan of Fred. That's the way I saw it. Just reading by the comments, he does good things. Sometimes he doesn't do good things. Some people have said he's inconsistent. Some people have said that he stepped up to the mark before we went into lockdown. He had a good run of games, I've got to say. I think it was about 8 to 10 games where he was absolutely solid in that midfield. So Jess went first last time. So Kylie, thoughts on Fred? 3 minutes starts now.
Fred, ultimately we paid far too much money for him. In the first place, I think it was about at least 50 million or so. He, very much struggled in his first season, and obviously this has now been his second season playing for United. Very much sort of billed as an excellent player. During a time where we've been quite bad, really. Actually, if you really think about it, the time where Ollie did very well when he was an interim manager, he had the midfield triumvirate, who I've already mentioned, which was Matic, Herrera, and Pogba. Up until I think Herrera was sort of agitating for a move, and then sort of quietly, obviously had his injury, didn't he? And then he moved sort of on to never sort of played for United again. Since then, obviously, or more at least, obviously, this season, Fred was very much a mainstay, as you've obviously alluded to in this season, when we were getting very poor results. So a lot of losses and draws, and again, we were very much struggling, for form, for consistency, and also for a style of play. So Fred very much did suit, obviously, that sort of counter-attacking style. But again, we were struggling to break teams down, and we were struggling to get, results and bits and pieces like that. And then we've seen, obviously, with particularly when the lockdown has ceased and Fred has been out of the team, with the midfield of Pogba, Matic, and Fernandes, you've seen a dramatic increase and resurgence from United in terms of the form that they've displayed, in terms of the results they're obtaining, but also in terms of the possession play-based football that we're playing, and a general sort of swagger or confidence has returned to United when Fred isn't part of the team. And really, often you have to sort of think, I mean, we can obviously, and I will sort of delve into Fred's individual attributes, but in terms of the good of the team, we have seen, and again, there's obviously, other factors incorporated that must be, looked at, but we have seen that when Fred's been a part of the team, we have struggled. Again, in that sort of, in terms of getting results. And again, Fred himself individually doesn't necessarily have any attributes that you would deem world class. It's often a case of where, because standards have dropped so far, that we think of Fred as like a top class midfielder who we can really sort of hang our hat on. But again, he's really sort of struggled. He's not necessarily a master of any attribute or anything of that nature. He does struggle to pass. I think he's not got the passing range of, let's say, a Paul Pogba or Bruno Fernandes. He's not very good at contributing in terms of like goals or assists, and he does think of himself as a box-to-box midfielder. And when you think of players of that nature, you do want them to chip in with those goals and assists. And again, if we're sort of then focusing on him as maybe a CDM or as someone who's a tough tackling or tenacious player, again, there's another stat, of course, that he was in the Europe's top 5 leagues. He was the most dribble pass player. So again, we're seeing that obviously when you're the most dribble pass player as a central defensive midfielder, you are going to, you can't really be that, because you're almost the last line of defense before it gets on your defense. So you need to be as safe as houses and very solid, and you need to make sure that you're keeping everything tight and secure. And Fred does really struggle in that facet as well. Also, as well, he's got a very poor touch to him as well. We've seen that on occasions. We've even heard from Troy Deeney, the Watford striker, that Watford had identified him as a problem area, and that and we saw that as well. Is exemplified in that match. How often they were upon him almost instantaneously, and with other players, for example, Matic has got a very solid touch, and he also can shield the ball very well. Unfortunately, Fred suffers from obviously diminutive frame, but also from a very poor touch, which has resulted in us ceding possession. And like I said, you can't have someone of that nature who, as I said, and I've sort of mentioned, quite a widespread and wide-ranging list of his attributes, where he leaves much to be desired.
Fair enough, mate. I must say, I do. I am trying to be impartial. I do agree with the transfer. I do think it was too much money for 25-30 million. I think would have been a fair price for him, for what he brings to the team. So yeah, I mean, yeah, good points there, Carly. Actually, I didn't realise about the Watford thing with Troy Deeney. Didn't know about that.
Mm-hmm.
Jess, your
I think. Sorry, go ahead.
Go on, go for it.
I probably agree mostly with what Kylie's saying. I think when he came in, you really did wonder, like, why. I think, again, under the squad that's being developed, I think that he'll probably be a rotation player. I don't think that he'll be. I don't know. I don't know that he will be the permanent. Like, I don't think he'll be played all the time. If I'm just looking at the United, actually the United website about him with his stats, and I mean, he does the tackles, he wins 50%. All of it is around 50%, anything to do with tackles and duels and that kind of stuff. He has got good passing accuracy, but again, shooting is not very good either. So I think the team that's being developed right now is a team that's on a rotational basis. I think that Ole and Fina and all those guys, they will change it up depending on what team we're playing. I'm somebody who likes to think that we have a permanent squad that plays mostly and then you bring in whoever in and out. And I'm hopeful that that's what will happen. But I think, I'm not sure that he was worth the purchase, yeah, I would have to agree.
Yeah.
He's one of those inconsistent so player, some days good, really good.
I think
exceptionally good
you both
sometimes.
agree then, best at this moment in time. Yeah.
Yep. I think he'll be a rotational player.
Well, I got to say, I think I fucked up a bit on that last one because I thought one would be for him and one would be against. So
it's hard to be really for him, isn't it? Really, though, because he is.
So you both get a point for that, right?
It's very easy as well with like passing accuracy. It's very easy to get that's a stat that's very easy to sort of like.
Shooting is 38%.
Yeah, but passing is like, for example, if I did a lot of side to side, which Fred, and like I said, Fred doesn't make necessarily that many through balls or forward balls or risky balls. So it's very easy to get your pass accuracy up when you're sort of spraying side to side passes. And we have seen, like I said, in that respect, we have seen when obviously Fred and McTominay have played together during the period where we were struggling and we were playing obviously a counter-attacking football, we have seen that we couldn't in those particular games. There wasn't a case of where we were playing possession football or like any sort of like attractive football. And so, like I said, it's quite easy when Fred obviously often plays the safe pass for him to sort of massage that particular stat up.
Yeah,
I think Matic would have been a better one to well, actually, I find it quite amusing now that probably if you'd done a debate before lockdown anyway, well before, like, I don't know, Christmas time, people were on Matic's case left, right, and center, and now he's like golden boy,
Well,
so,
I'll tell you what. You bring up Matic there. Let's end it with, he signed a 3-year deal today. So, what are your thoughts on that? I mean, Kylie, he's 31 years old. I must admit, I thought he was pushing on 33, 34. That's why I said yesterday, I thought it was a 1 or 2 year deal. You go past the 30s, but I didn't realise he was still quite at a decent age at 31 years. So 3-year deal. I don't think I think we'll get the best out of him for another season or two. So I think it's the right move. I mean, George, what do you think about him?
Sorry, you think it's the right move for the
I think it's the right move, yeah. But 3-year deal, like I say, I think he proved in these performances. He was out of the team for a decent amount of time, and he's forced his way back in around about January time, I think it was. So, 3-year deal. I mean, are you happy with that? Change your transfer plans for a CDM in the summer, or what?
I'm happy that we're keeping Matic because obviously I've gone in quite hard on Fred already in terms of like his lack of skills in midfield, and I think we've seen the drop off when it's outside of Fernandes, Pogba, and Matic. We've seen the other players, the other midfielders that we try and utilise are not of that, the quality that we need. Matic is already a proven sort of Premier League winner. Obviously, when he was playing for Chelsea, and there was part of the time when he was at Chelsea, he was often obviously referred to or widely known as the best CDM in the league. And again, he sort of rediscovered and almost had sort of an Indian summer in some ways in terms of like his renaissance that he's now experienced over the past few months. There is an argument even to be said that he is the best CDM all round in the Premier League at the moment, just simply because his sort of positional sense, his ability with the ball as well. The way that he, for example, in the game against Brighton, wasn't it? What is it, Brighton? Yeah, I think it was Brighton. Obviously, when he did the hooked pass over to Mason Greenwood over his shoulder, and then allow it. There aren't very many CDMs that you'll see who'll be able to do that so effectively or efficiently, and he's almost like the perfect marriage of someone who is, because often with CDMs you'll find that a lot of CDMs are almost like playmakers from deep, or they are obviously tough tackling, tenacious players. So for example, if you're a playmaker from deep, you're like a Jorginho, for example, or you might be quite a tough tackling one like Kante. But I think that what Matic is he's almost like both sides of that combined in sort, and he's sort of like a perfect fusion of of the two. And as I said, he's been exemplary since he's come back, and I am happy that he's signed a new contract, because we do have a dearth of options there, and there doesn't seem to be necessarily a standout candidate that we can go for who wouldn't cost the earth. And again, we've got to be mindful that we are still potentially in the middle of a pandemic, and that does have an impact even on someone as even on a club as great as Manchester United. That does have an impact on finances and ability to sign players. And Matic has proven himself that he's well worth a new contract. It's just and obviously the term of that, in terms of how many years, that's probably where you could have some degree of argument, because some people would say obviously 3 years is too much. So.
Well, before we go to you, Jess, just want to read out a couple of comments. Someone I've not seen here before, Zizu5. Welcome to the channel. He says, let's not dismiss Fred. And he also says the drop-off is playing Lingard and Mata. If he's not used right by you could say as well, when he's not injured. So that sort of like backs up with what you were saying there, George. Casper says Kante is one of the best box-to-box midfielders. He doesn't score much. They are similar players there they're just there to harass the opponents, but do agree with Kylie to some point. Mark says the next match is Aston Villa on Thursday at 8:15. And Mark also said Matic didn't have a great game against Bournemouth. He was partly responsible for both Bournemouth goals. I think that's in terms of not closing down quick enough. Jess, Matic, what do you think? Do you agree with it?
Yeah, I think it's good that we're getting some stability. I think that's key. I do feel that sometimes he's still, in the last game, he was a little bit sideways passing thing going on, which is what he was criticized for way back when we weren't playing very good. But I think that it's a good thing that they did it. I think it shows that they're aiming for stability, that we are building a team. And probably 3 years, I don't know. Maybe they're looking towards a rotation kind of thing, right?
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Down the road, who knows how they're. I feel like United are now starting to look at building and developing and having a rotational team, which is what we need.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, that's it. We come to the end of the first Monday night debate. I want to thank both people for coming on. George, well done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jessica from Canada, thank you very much for coming on and making
You're welcome.
Hopefully, it's a good show and people enjoy it, and hopefully we can do it again next Monday. Last comment, Max says Matic for 3 years is fine. He can help the younger players, and we can sell if he isn't good enough.
Stability.
That's a good point, that actually, because he'll be under contract, won't he? So he'll still be worth some money. So thanks everyone for joining. Hope you had fun. If you got any suggestions to make it better, put a comment in. And Zizu says MadMarcus. Do you know what? We'll highlight that one, mate, because I've not seen him here before. And there we go. MadMarcus Monday, up the Reds. There we go. So there we go. But thanks to everyone. You made it a great show, and see you all again soon.
Bye, guys.